All right, let's jump right into it. Welcome back to The Explainer. Now, today, we're not looking at your standard victorious mountaineering expedition. Not even close. Instead, we're completely dissecting a gritty, grueling survival narrative that literally strips human endurance down to the bone. We're going to do a clinical analysis of a mountain disaster. We want to look at exactly what happens when the human body and the mind are pushed way past their breaking points on an unforgiving, freezing slope. It's a dark, heavy journey, for sure. But by breaking down the mechanics of this climb step by step, we're going to really understand the true anatomy of survival, and ultimately, of failure. To really wrap our heads around this disaster, we've got to plunge straight into the sheer physical and mental agony of this climb. When someone screams, "This is hell," you know it isn't just some casual complaint. It's the absolute crushing reality settling into the minds of the characters we're following. I mean, think about it. After hours and hours of traversing this brutal mountain slope, their bodies have pretty much hit rock bottom. The sheer overwhelming pressure of the ascent is it's completely suffocating them. It's stripping away every ounce of their energy, their hope, and leaving behind this desperate, inescapable exhaustion.
Section 1. The brink of collapse, physical exhaustion. Now, before a mountain actually breaks you physically, it systematically drains every single reserve you've got. And there's this stark, almost ironic contrast in how it takes its toll on different people. On one hand, we've got Sunny. Now, he's noted as being the weakest of the group, right? But against all logic, he's actually enduring this absolute nightmare of a climb the best. And then, on the flip side, look at Benny. The environment has absolutely devastated him. His eyes are muddy, totally unfocused. His breath is ragged and shallow, like there's a literal weight crushing his lungs. He's burning up with fever, and the second the group stops moving, he just collapses onto the ground in total silence. That angry cursing he usually does, completely gone. It just goes to show you the mountain is totally unpredictable. Having physical bulk definitely doesn't mean you're going to survive. And this right here brilliantly shows how sheer exhaustion just destroys your ability to make rational decisions. So Benny is lying there on the ground, right? He can barely move, but he manages to sit up, uncorks his flask with his violently shaky hand, and just greedily chugs huge gulps. Gregor, who's the stoic leader of the group, gives him this absolutely crucial warning: conserve your water. It's survival 101, a basic test. But Benny is so completely consumed by his physical collapse that he ignores it entirely and drains the flask. In an environment this brutal, blowing through your resources like that is literally step one toward an absolute disaster.
Section 2. A precarious refuge, nighttime sanctuary. So survival up here isn't just about enduring the cold, it's about staying totally invisible once the sun drops. Gregor enforces these super rigid survival protocols. First, they find a natural alcove tucked precariously behind a narrow ledge. This is non-negotiable because they have to keep their fire completely hidden from view to avoid, well, unwanted attention. Then, they eat their rations, roasted oxen meat, in absolute total silence. No whispering, no chatting, just chewing and the silent dread of whatever is lurking out there in the pitch black. And finally, Gregor sets up strict solitary watch rotations because they know exactly who they're hiding from. They are desperately trying to avoid the horrific, looming threat of the Mountain King.
Section 3. The blind tyrant, night watch terror.
All right, so with Benny and another older climber, Frazier, completely trapped in their own feverish nightmares, the psychological terror shifts entirely to the night watch. This is where absolute dead silence literally becomes a matter of life and death. Gregor takes the first shift, but soon Sunny tags in. The skies up there are pitch black. I mean, sure, there are some dim stars and a tiny sliver of a moon, but that light is completely useless against the suffocating darkness of the mountain. But here's the catch. Only Sunny's eyes are uniquely adapted to pierce that darkness. So as he's sitting there in absolute freezing isolation, he looks down the faint ribbon of the trail they just climbed, all the way back down to a distant stone platform. A platform littered with the tiny dots of dead bodies. Over the next 4 hours, this watch turns into pure, unadulterated terror. Let's break it down. In hour 1, a massive dark figure, the tyrant, crawls onto that distant platform. By hour 2, every time its claws grab a body and bring it to its maw, this muffled, sickening sound of crunching bones travels all the way up the mountain straight to Sunny's ears. It is incredibly tense. Then, hour 3. Sunny flinches. He accidentally nudges a small rock off the ledge. It tumbles down, knocking into other rocks, and echoes like a literal thunderclap in the dead of night. The tyrant immediately stops eating and stares directly up at Sunny. Sunny is petrified. He literally forgets to breathe for what feels like an eternity. But then, as hour 4 approaches, the tyrant just turns away and goes back to eating. And it's in this chilling, clinical moment that Sunny figures it out. The monster's milky, expressionless eyes are useless. The tyrant is completely blind. It only hunts by sound.
Section 4. Compounding burdens. Morning reality.
Now, figuring out the monster's weakness is a great momentary victory, right? But the second the sun rises, the bleak reality hits them like a truck. There is this invisible environmental threat completely ravaging the older, heavier climbers. Any hope that a night of sleep would fix Benny and Frazier, yeah, totally destroyed. They actually look worse. Frazier correctly diagnoses it as altitude sickness. For those who don't know, it's this incredibly debilitating physical condition caused by the high elevation, and it's rendering them deadly pale, shaky, and barely even conscious. The environment itself is literally poisoning their bodies the higher they go. It just proves that sometimes the mountain will kill you without ever throwing a single stone.
So the morning reality is pretty much as grim as it gets. Sleep gave them zero recovery. And because Benny is slowly dying under his own weight, Gregor steps up and makes this clinical, absolutely necessary call. He transfers most of Benny's heavy supplies onto his own back and even hands some of the extra physical weight over to Sunny. So the burden on the healthy climbers is literally increasing, but they have no choice. Sunny tells Gregor that the monster spent the entire night eating the dead at the bottom of the trail. And Gregor realizes that the second those bodies are gone, that blind tyrant is going to follow their exact path up the mountain. So it immediately becomes this desperate, heavy race to find an old path before nightfall. They are literally trying to outrun a monster while carrying extra weight, all while slowly suffocating on thin air.
Section 5. The fatal descent, the breaking point.
The sun is climbing right alongside them, slowly hitting its zenith. Nobody's talking, nobody's laughing. There is only the sound of strained, ragged breathing as every single survivor focuses entirely on just placing their feet. The physical toll is right on the verge of hitting a brick wall. But before we look at the mechanics of what happens next, we really have to ask ourselves, what actually breaks a survivor? Is it the monster hunting them from below? Is it the invisible poison of the altitude? Is it the sheer crushing weight of the supplies? Or is it just a tiny, momentary lapse in the most basic mechanical function of the human body, putting one foot securely in front of the other?
Well, here is the anatomy of a fatal fall, broken down into sharp, brutal steps. Benny is falling further and further behind. His strength has completely abandoned him, and then a frantic, desperate scream just shatters the silence. Step 1. Benny's foot slips on a tiny, ice-covered rock. Just a simple slip. Step 2. He falls backward, hitting the hard ground with a sickening thud. Step 3. He doesn't stop. He starts rolling wildly down the incredibly steep rock face. His arms are scrambling, desperately trying to grab onto anything, leaving these bloody streaks on the jagged rocks, as he becomes less like a human and more like a rag doll. And finally, step 4. After tumbling for what feels like a lifetime, but was really just seconds, his body slams violently into the top of a large protruding stone. His body is basically left as a pile of broken flesh. The conclusion is just bleak and entirely factual. Benny was dead. The rest of the group is frozen in place, utterly powerless to do a single thing about it. We just watched how the mountain systematically stripped away his strength, then his mind, and finally, his footing. And it leaves us with this really provocative final thought. When the margin of error is absolute zero, and the mountain demands total perfection, who among us actually possesses the sheer, raw endurance to survive?